Number 3 is your Kansas Jayhawks here. Now remember here, arguably the best returning quarterback in the Big 12 is Jalen Daniels. What is up, everybody? It is Jake with Master Football back at it again. Happy Wednesday. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to be up to date on everything college football, pro football, Madden, EA college football, NFL draft, anything related to American football, hit the red subscribe button. You will not be disappointed. Also, the like button too, and follow on Twitter/X. That fam is growing. Without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, guys, yesterday I released my video talking about the top 5 teams I had that were currently ranked in the AP preseason poll that were not going to be ranked at the end of the season. So, of course, you got to do the inverse of that situation. Let's look at that AP poll. I'm going to tell you 5 teams right now that are not in there that are going to be. Let's go. So we check out the AP poll right here for 2023. Obviously, we got Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State. No first place votes for Alabama. Very interesting there. Remember here, there was a couple rules that we went over before on yesterday's video. Basically, one team in the top 10 will not be ranked right now that is ranked right now. My best guess was Washington, but again, all you Washington fans, I also said it was just as likely that you guys were going to be unranked as it was you guys were going to win the national championship. So trust me, I'm still with you guys there. I like what you guys are doing there. But you see the rest of this down here, we see a lot of SEC teams. We see a lot of Big Ten teams. Now, what we know, generally, there's a certain amount of rules here with what happens at the end of the season. We're going to go into those right now, and then we're going to go through our top 5 teams. Let's go. All right, so what we know generally is that there are about 10 teams every year that finish the season unranked, meaning there's going to be 10 new spots to be taken over. I'm only going to guess 5 right now. We also know that mid-tier conferences typically show up at the bottom of the rankings list at the end of the season. That's typically when you're going to see your 12-1 team in the Sun Belt. You're going to see a 9-3 team or a 10-2 team in the American or the Mountain West, something like that, which you're going to see. You're also going to see, like I said, many G5 schools show up in these spots. Again, a lot of teams, too, in terms of those mid-tier teams, could also be Big 12, could also be some ACC teams that aren't named Clemson or Florida State. So let's get into that now with number 5. So number 5 we see right here is Toledo. So from the optimistic view, if you look at them, they only have one away game in September, and the hardest game is week 1 at Illinois. What I'm basically trying to say there is if you're going to ever spring something on somebody, you do it in week 1. They don't have film on you. You don't have film on them. You can really surprise them and come out there. Senior quarterback DeQuan Finn is a 5th-year senior, got a lot of experience coming back at the quarterback position. And again, they look to have the best secondary in the league so far. The preseason preview basically mentioned the fact that Toledo had always won with big offense. However, now they're really playing well with defense. Experienced quarterback, good defense, things look good. Now, the pessimistic view here is that Finn turns the ball over in losses, 10 INTs in 3 of their losses in 2022. They had more losses than that. And then also 5 of their final 7 games are on the road. Let's check out the schedule. So checking out the Toledo Rockets schedule in 2023, like I said, at Illinois. Now, Illinois did lose a couple people, Devin Witherspoon, other people like that. But again, they're still a good team. They were very, very surprising out there. But then you look at their home against Texas Southern, San Jose State. I like Chevon Cordero. We'll see what they do. And then they have home against Western Michigan and then home against Northern Illinois. But then look at this. At UMass, at Ball State, at Miami, Ohio, Buffalo at home for Tuesday night action, and then they have Wednesday against Eastern Michigan, and then at Bowling Green and at Central Michigan. Now, they did a good job last year in conference. They were 5-3, but think about that. Like I said, the 5 of the last 7 games are going to be on the road there. Going to be interesting, but they could be a team, could be 10-2, depending on what they do and get at Illinois. And again, one of those away games right there, you can only imagine they're going to lose one of those 2, but 10-2 and 11-2 win the MAC. Very reasonable for them to be ranked at the end of the season. All right, number 4 is Duke. Now, the reason why I say Duke is because I think they have a little more wiggle room than Toledo does. If Toledo loses to Illinois week 1, I would say it's probably a 50-50 shot. If maybe even less than that, they're going to be ranked at the end of the season. Duke has some more leeway because they have more opportunities for wins out there. So the optimistic view here, QB Riley Leonard is back, and as well as a drastically improved defense, it returns in 2023, and half of the ranked games are at home early in the season, Clemson and Notre Dame. Now, the pessimistic view here is that David Cutcliffe, their head coach, is gone. We check out their schedule to see what they go through. Like I said, it does match out early out in the season. They got a couple tough away games later on in the year, but we'll see how it goes. So I'm big on talking about the fact that, again, week 1, Clemson at home is going to be tough. And again, you see that's a very, very tough game. But remember here, that's on Monday. Okay, then they have a game on Saturday against Lafayette. So they got a Monday Night Football, then they play on Saturday. So short rest there, but Lafayette's not too difficult of an opponent there. So you think about home against number 9 Clemson. You come down here home against number 13 Notre Dame. So Two really difficult games, both at home, both in September, both early on in the season. They don't have film on you. You don't have film on them. You could surprise them. Typically, it would favor the less highly ranked team in that instance, not always. But I'm basically saying if you're ever going to spring something on somebody, it's going to happen there. As opposed to when you get to October here, then you're starting to talk about people are going to have a lot more film on you. At Florida State's going to be really, really tough. You also have at North Carolina, a rival last year that beat you in a close game. So these are going to be some tough games that they have. But if you think about that, home against Clemson, home against Notre Dame, at Florida State, at North Carolina, you go 1-3 in those games and do well the rest of the way throughout. You go 8-4, something like that. Maybe you go 7-5. You're still going to have a couple good wins. I would not be surprised if Duke is ranked at the end of the season in 2023. Number 3 is your Kansas Jayhawks here. Now remember here, arguably the best returning quarterback in the Big 12 is Jalen Daniels. He returns with a buzz around the campus. They just announced a huge new adjustment to their football stadium. Again, there's a lot of buzz at Kansas right now for the football squad. You never would believe it. They only really have one true difficult road test is what I'll say, at Texas. And they should get off to a 4-0 start reasonably. And their bye week before playing Oklahoma at home, meaning they had, again, Texas and Oklahoma, two of the bigger brands in that league, the Big 12. They have one's an away game. It's going to be tough. And the other one at Oklahoma at home is going to have a bye week before that. However, remember here, they also have the worst defense in the Big 12 that returns, and they finished last year. They started 5-0, but they finished 1-7. So we check out the schedule to see how it lines up, and it's very, very similar to how that's going to look. So Illinois week 2 is going to be interesting, but you see Missouri State home against Illinois, at Nevada, and then BYU. Wouldn't be surprised there if we have a 4-0 start. But then you see September 30th at number 11 Texas, going to be tough. UCF's a new team. Then you have Oklahoma State at Oklahoma State, a bye week, and then you have Oklahoma at home. At Iowa State's a difficult place to play just because it's, a very good defense. Texas Tech should be they were 26th ranked team in the country right now, so they're going to be surprising. Kansas State is the reigning Big 12 champ, and then at Cincinnati. Again, depends on how it goes, but as long as Jalen Daniels isn't injured, he was injured for 4 games last season. I wouldn't be surprised. Again, they would probably get into a lot of shootouts. An 8-4 season, they are going to be ranked. 7-5, maybe not, but 8-4 for sure they will be at the end of the season. All right, I already mentioned Toledo before, and I'm not too sold on Toledo. I am very much sold on James Madison being a ranked team at the end of the season. Remember here, James Madison last season, they returned the best O-line in the Sun Belt. One of the best things about having a good offensive line is you're able to dictate. Offensive lines can generally travel pretty well. The Dukes had a swarming defense, and a lot of the teams that aren't passing teams that they play in 2023. Remember that was the basic situation there. They gave up less than 250 yards in every game except for one. Their first year fully eligible in FBS. Like you said, there's that buds. They got a lot of things going for them from that perspective, and they played Georgia Southern at home after a bye. I say that it's important to talk about that because I mentioned how good their defense was. Well, remember here that their pessimistic view was the fact that they still have to play Georgia Southern, and they allowed 578 yards to the Eagles in 2022. So we check out the schedule to see how that goes. They've got some chances for some success. So they open up the season against Bucknell, and then they have at Virginia. Virginia's in a weird spot right now. I know they're being mentioned in some SEC and Big Ten realignment talk, but from a football perspective, they're not doing so great. Then we have at Troy, which will be hard. At Utah State, they are a pretty good. Cooper Lagai is a pretty decent passer. So again, that's going to be traveling across the country. We'll see how that goes. Then they have South Alabama. Now remember, they have a bye week, and then Georgia Southern. They gave up 578 yards to these guys last season. Then they have a short week against Marshall, but then the rest of these games, they should be able to handle them. UConn will be tougher than you think, but they have it at home at the end of the season. Like I said, could be surprising. Remember, last year they had a pretty good season. We'll see what they do in 2023. And number 1, and I did not go with my beloved Boise State Broncos. I think they're going to have a very successful season. I like what they're doing. At Washington, week 1 is real tough. But Air Force is in a completely different spot. So Air Force, they benefit from a lot of reasons why they're going to be for sure ranked at the end of the season. Let's go through those real quick. They return a lot of players on the number 1 defense in all of the FBS. From a yards per game perspective, they were the number 1 team in the country in 2022. They get most of those guys back. Offense is the same offense it has been for years. So again, they lost their quarterback and their fullback for their offense that had like 1,500 rushing yards. But it should be easier than other teams because they run kind of the same system. They've always done the same thing. They don't have a lot of turnover. Troy Calhoun knows what he does. The rules now allow for a running clock after first down. So a ball control team will control the ball even more. Remember here, what they do is they really, really kill the clock. They just run the clock down. So the defense, their numbers are a little bit inflated because it's not like they match up man for man with people. I know that the armed forces have weight requirements, so they can't have 320-pound offensive or defensive linemen. But remember, their strategy is to kill the clock. It's going to happen even more. These games are going to be a lot shorter. Air Force is going to give a lot of teams trouble. And also, they just play no one. The Mountain West has a lot of teams breaking in new quarterbacks. There's, Fresno State lost a ton of guys on their team. There's a lot of good defenses coming back from the Mountain West perspective, but they're just losing a lot there. Now, the pessimistic view is they have to replace a lot on offense, and it could still take some time. But we check out the schedule. They don't play anybody. The people that they do play are probably breaking in new quarterbacks. They have a good offense, and the game's going to be even shorter than it was before. Air Force probably going to be ranked. So they open up against Rob Morris, and then play Sam Houston State in NRG Stadium in Houston. Then they have Utah State. They have at San Jose State, which will be an interesting game. We'll see how that kind of goes. A later game there for them. And then San Diego State, which that game with the over-under, that game is going to be like 21 points. Wyoming at home. Remember, for some reason, they haven't beaten Wyoming at Wyoming in years. And then they have at Navy in a neutral site stadium. And then they also have, you think about this, Colorado State down here. So Colorado State is a rival that usually play at the end of the season, but they moved it up so they can have them play Boise State on Friday, Black Friday, for a game on the Blue. Going to be a really, really interesting game out there because those are basically the two teams in the former Mountain Division of the Mountain West that would play for the championship. This season going to be doing the same thing. Again, if you look at this right here, it's not unreasonable for them to go, what is that, 10-1 before they play Boise State in that schedule. That is not unreasonable at all. So Air Force in 2023, no Power 5 opponents. They have to play Army, Navy, and 2 FCS teams. So realistically, they're going to be just fine. They're probably going to get out. Like I said, 10-1 is not unreasonable for them to play at Boise State, even if they lose that game and they don't go to the Mountain West Championship game, which again, they probably would. I mean, we're probably looking at a 12-win season for them, including that bowl game. Air Force, more than likely, unranked right now, will be ranked at the end of the season. All right, guys, get in the comments. Let me know what you guys agree with and let me know what you guys don't. That's what I'm going with here. But anyways, thank you so much. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. That's it for me, guys. I'll see you guys later. I am out.